If only you could see like how many tabs I just had open over the past like half an hour or so as I was doing the research. I was like going back and like checking with various prognosticators and comparing like, all right, so this particular film won in some other year and then it also got the WGA award, but then this other film didn't get the WGA award but still got the Oscar.
This is why this year is so great though, because I think the race is wide open. Obviously I have my picks.
Yeah.
But there's like, in each category, there's like 2 or 3 strong candidates.
Exactly.
And it could go either way. That's why I said 2017 is like an awesome year.
Yeah. In the last episode, I know we kind of we touched on that towards the end, but yeah, I mean this is the first year in, I would say, I think I've been writing up my predictions at least in like a text form for like 5 years now, and
right.
This is the first year where I felt really non-confident about a lot of stuff. Like even like just as an example, the best original screenplay category.
Oh, that one's tough.
Is super tough, right? Because not only do we have stuff like Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri and Shape of Water and The Big Sick in there, but the film that I would say is probably the front runner in that category, Three Billboards, wasn't even nominated at the WGAs. The Writers Guild of America Awards, and almost always there's a correlation there, like because the writers are the ones who vote for the WGAs, they're also the ones that get to vote for the corresponding category at the Oscars.
Right.
So with no nomination for Three Billboards, the one thing you would expect it to like ace at the Oscars, original screenplay, it doesn't have a precursor award. So
this is the year where whoever loses out on Best Picture is going to win Best Screenplay.
You think though? Because I mean,
yes, 100% I think so.
Okay, well, maybe we'll get into this in a moment, but because we also have to try to keep this podcast short too, because it's very tempting to like go super long. But before we go too far, let's start the show.
Please listen carefully.
Welcome back to the Extra Buttery Podcast, our second episode of 2018. And in this week's episode, we're going for another giant topic, just like last week. Last time we were talking about the highlights of 2017, and now we're going to be seeing where those highlights are going to end up in the awards race. We're going to be going on the record and talking about our predictions for the 90th Academy Awards, the Oscars. So, without teasing it too much more than that, from Toronto, I'm Robert Snow, and joining me from Vancouver is my co-host Jason Chen. How's it going?
It's the Oscar special. I'm doing good. Yeah, I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing pretty good, yeah.
I'm pretty excited about this episode, actually, because we have a lot to talk about. It's very interesting this year.
We have a lot to talk about, and can I say that there's an unfair advantage here because we're doing this a lot earlier than I'm comfortable with, and I feel like I need more research before I can be 100% sure about the picks this year. But I mean, we'll let it slide.
Okay, before we get into it right away, though, Rob and I kind of make or have different criteria when it comes to these picks. For me, I tend to sort of ignore what films have won in the past. I generally go by films that I think should win based on my subjective opinion. I feel like I've seen enough films to make pretty good picks, and for the most part, I feel like I have the right, final candidates. But Rob, what's your strategy this year?
I'm like the mirror image of that. Like I go way deep into the analysis. I'm cross-checking with different pundits working for Variety, The Hollywood Reporter. I'm doing my own research, checking like previous winners and the rate at which winners of precursor awards like the Guild Awards, Writers Guild, Directors Guild, Producers Guild, how often the winners in those categories eventually end up winning the corresponding awards at the Oscars. So it's a lengthy process, and but I mean it's gotten me some pretty good results in years past.
Fair enough. All right, let's just get started right away with Best Picture.
All right.
This is a very, very tough category. Right off the bat, I think there are 2 possible winners, and it's between The Shape of Water and Three Billboards. I think that the Academy would prefer Shape of Water. It has that sort of Academy bait feel because it's a fairy tale and it's got great acting, great production design, a really engaging story. Three Billboards is a little bit off the beaten track. I don't think Martin McDonagh's films can be called mainstream. I think his films, like Tarantino, tends to find more of a niche crowd.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, in my personal opinion, even though I would not be surprised if The Shape of Water won, I think the best picture is Three Billboards.
Okay, interesting. Well, I'm actually going to go the opposite direction. I'm going to say that it's the Shape of Water.
I knew this would happen.
Yeah, and that's partially due to my wanting it to win because I legitimately love the movie. It's easily in my top 5 of the year.
Agreed.
But it is, to your point though, it's very tricky because historically one of the key predictors of Best Picture is the film that wins the Best Ensemble Cast Award at the SAG Awards, and this year that was Three Billboards. However, there are other factors for Three Billboards this year, like a bit of a backlash that I feel was that the film doesn't deserve.
I totally 100% agree with you. I don't get the backlash either.
And as well as the fact that Shape of Water is one of those films that's racked up like 13 nominations. It's easily leading the pack in terms of number of nominations.
Yes.
And that in and of itself can sometimes suggest the general direction that the Academy is going with the film that they say is like, it's due to the preferential voting on the ballots for Best Picture. It's possible that The Shape of Water may just get an edge over top of Three Billboards just on the strength of it being so well known and popular.
Right. I would say that Lady Bird is a number 3 and it's in the mix, but I would be surprised if Lady Bird won.
Yeah, I mean, like, I also love Lady Bird. And part of me wants it to win, but I also know that it's not the sort of film that can really go the final distance. You know, it's more of a smaller, kind of personalized film. It's unique to a particular type of character, and you know, I'm all for Greta Gerwig eventually winning Best Director at some point in her career. I don't think it's this one, not this year.
No. The other thing I kind of wanted to point out was that with all these Best Picture nominees, do you get the feeling that we're really steering away from films with really intricate plots? Because I look at some of these Best Picture nominations and they tend to be quite self-contained films. Like the plots aren't very sprawling. And I feel like this is a general move from the Academy towards maybe not so much niche films, but more genre specific.
Yeah, that's possible. I mean, certainly the past couple of years have kind of gone that way as well. Like we've seen a movie like La La Land or Moonlight be the top contenders in a particular year, like last year, or Spotlight or Birdman end up winning Best Picture in 2015 and 2014 respectively.
Yeah, we don't get those long epic tales anymore.
Yeah, like stuff like Lawrence of Arabia or Saving Private Ryan or things like that. But do you want to spin right into Best Director since we kind of teased it?
Yeah, so I know I gave Best Picture to Three Billboards, but to me, hands down, the best director is Guillermo del Toro.
I agree, 100%.
He runs away with this award. I think Christopher Nolan is a close second because of the technical expertise of Dunkirk, but Guillermo del Toro, I think, arguably has the more complicated subject matter, a more complicated story, a more complicated shooting due to all the special effects and the way that the main characters have to sort of connect non-verbally. I think he wins this hands down.
Yeah, and he has a few other things on his side. Namely, I believe he won the DGA award. Let me double check that before. Oh no, yeah, okay. Anyways, no. So it turns out that he didn't win the DGA, but I feel like he will eventually get that before he claims the Oscar. And the other thing he has on his side is the fact that he's been his films have popped up in the Oscars in other capacities in the past, so it's not like it's his first time at the Oscars. And
yes.
Meanwhile, Greta Gerwig, who I would suggest would be in the top 3 possible contenders or frontrunners in this category, it's her first time at the Oscars with a nomination like this. So,
okay,
it's always harder to kind of get over that first nomination bump, I find.
Yeah, my top 3 would be Del Toro, Nolan, and Paul Thomas Anderson.
PTA is I would like to see him win eventually. Obviously, I don't doubt that he will eventually get the award, but I feel like for something like Phantom Thread is a little bit too niche to get the kind of recognition in the directing category, even though it is a pretty phenomenal piece of work.
It is phenomenal. I agree with you there, but I don't think it's his best work, and I don't think it's the best film of the year either.
All right, so let's get into that really divisive category, original screenplay.
Yes. You go first.
Okay, so for this, I was tossing around like three front runners, Three Billboards, Lady Bird, and The Big Sick.
Oh, okay. I had The Shape of Water my top three, but okay.
Okay, yeah, but my thinking was that if The Shape of Water goes on to win Best Picture, original screenplay will kind of occupy that role that it has in many times in the past, where a strong front runner for Best Picture that doesn't actually win Best Picture will be given the screenplay award as sort of like a consolation prize, essentially.
Yes, I agree with you.
So in that, like, thinking of it that way, I sort of take Shape of Water out of the running in my head and say that Three Billboards is probably going to take it. It also is a way of saying, like, Martin McDonagh didn't get nominated for Best Director, so he'll kind of come in here and still get an award for something. But I would say the strongest competition to McDonagh winning for Three Billboards would be Greta Gerwig for Lady Bird, because again, she's a really hot front runner for director and picture, but she can't quite go the distance. So again, like, screenplay opens up as a category to reward her for that.
I agree with your thinking, but because I picked Three Billboards to win Best Picture, I have Lady Bird winning Best Original Screenplay.
Oh, okay, so switcheroo. Okay.
Yeah, so if The Shape of Water wins Best Picture, then I think Best Original Screenplay would actually go to Three Billboards.
Mm-hmm.
So, like you said, the Best Picture and Best Screenplay are kind of connected in that way. The Shape of Water is in there, but the only thing is, The Shape of Water is very much a modern fairy tale. And I think Lady Bird and Three Billboards sticks out more to me in terms of originality.
Yeah. There's there's certainly a lot to be said for The Shape of Water for the way it kind of fuses genres and it kind of makes something new out of very disparate kind of influences. But for that kind of code word, original, is probably going to be pretty important to the voters.
Yeah, so if I get Best Picture wrong, I'm probably going to get this category wrong. So hopefully that's not the case.
But let's jump into adapted there while we're in there.
Yes.
I think I'd be surprised if you weren't in with me on this. Call Me By Your Name?
Yes, 100% yes. It is a very, very tough book to adapt, I think. It is part of a trilogy, isn't it? The books?
Yeah, is it a trilogy? Yeah, I don't know exactly how many books are in the series, but I know that, like, there are other books, and that the director of Call Me By Your Name has talked about wanting to adapt those as well.
Right. So, full disclosure, I didn't get to see Mudbound. The Disaster Artist was a good screenplay. I think in terms of the adaptation, though, a lot of the things in the book were left out. Molly's Game is a great adaptation as well, but again, very straightforward and very Aaron Sorkin. Logan's an interesting one because I
was happy to see Logan get it.
Yes, but it is a comic book movie that gets turned on its head. But I feel like Call Me By Your Name was just a more difficult screenplay to adapt, and I think they really pulled it off on that one.
Yeah. And again, there's like with the original category, adapted will kind of occupy that role where Call Me By Your Name is also possibly like, maybe in the top half of contenders for Best Picture.
Right.
So the fact that it won't win Best Picture will then kind of make it more likely that it can grab the Screenplay Award. Yeah,
I think in this category, I think Best Original Screenplay is a lot more competitive than Best Adapted.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Call Me By Your Name wins it by quite a big margin. The next category is, I think, one of the favorites between you and I.
Yeah.
And I think I would be surprised, too, if you disagreed with me. But I think Best Cinematography should go to Roger Deakins.
Yes, I think this is his year after losing 13 times in the past, some
it's ridiculous, huh?
Excellent films that he was nominated for.
Blade Runner's gorgeous. It's gorgeous.
Yeah. The work is great. I mean, it's not like he's slumming it by picking up the award for this movie versus some of the other ones, but this is a category where you actually sometimes see cinematographers like Deakins who have been nominated a whole bunch of times in the past, and then they finally kind of cinch it after a long period of time. He's also had a bit of a, I don't know if you want to call it misfortune or just like whatever, but he's been up against Emmanuel Lubezki for like 3 or 4 times in a row now.
Yeah.
And Lubezki has just been so innovative in the stuff that he's done with Alfonso Cuarón and Inarritu that it's just been really hard for someone like Deakins who to kind of get one over on that when you're up against someone who's like Lubezki.
Yeah, I think based on his work in Blade Runner, he should win. And then he has history working for him too this time. So I think he's going to be the hands down winner for that one. And now we jump into some of your favorite categories, acting.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously they're along with director and picture, like the acting categories are probably the top occupy the top 6
yes.
of the ones that people actually remember year over year and probably debate about the most. Some of these are easier than others to predict, I would say.
Yeah.
But let's get started. How about we get started with actress, because it is one of the harder ones to call.
For Best Actress?
Yeah.
I actually don't think there's much competition in this one.
Oh, really? Okay.
I think Frances McDormand was by far the best. And Sally Hawkins and Saoirse Ronan are clearly behind her, but they're not too far off. If Sally Hawkins or Saoirse Ronan win, I wouldn't be surprised. But Frances McDormand, in my opinion, was the best actress this year.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think I'm a little bit more torn than you because I also enjoyed Lady Bird a little bit more than you did. So I feel like I've got that bias working against me a bit. But obviously, like, McDormand did win the SAG Award in this category, so that's one of the obvious precursor things she needs to tick off to cinch the Oscar. But I do feel that there's a strong possibility that a dark horse may run up and grab this, and that could be Ronan, that could be Robbie.
I'd be surprised if Robbie won this. I think she was good in I, Tonya, but I think she's clearly behind Ronan, Hawkins, and McDormand.
I still feel it's really hard to call, though. I can't. I'm not super confident about it.
Fair enough. I think McDormand had a much harder role. Granted, Sally Hawkins couldn't say a single word.
Yeah.
But I think the character that McDormand plays in 3 Billboards really required a very nuanced performance. She's got this like steely demeanor that is like perfect for the role, and it's not a particularly easy role either. And I think she knocked it out of the park.
Yeah. And and this is a bit of a digression, but what kind of factor do you think the Me Too movement will have in skewing the results this year?
If I didn't take that much into account, but if we factor in the Me Too movement, I would say McDormand almost has a better shot because she plays a really strong female character, obviously a very flawed character, but a very strong female character. It is the story about a girl who gets raped and a mom who's basically out for revenge.
Yeah, so it's kind of that people have said, some of these arguments have been more elegantly framed than others, but some people have said that this is the year of the angry woman, and that's no better winner of the Best Actress Oscar than a performance of an angry woman.
They're all angry. Other than Meryl Streep, I think they're all angry.
Yeah, to varying degrees, yeah. So yeah, maybe from there we'll just go into actor. This one I feel very confident about.
Gary Oldman.
It's got to be Oldman.
Yeah.
Not only has I was surprised that he hadn't been nominated, I think, at all before this. Did he?
Really? No, he got Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, didn't he?
Oh, yes, that's right. But he hadn't been nominated as often as I think I'd expected. I had expected him to have like 4 or 5 nominations on his record, but it was actually Tinker Tailor that was his first. Yep. So yeah, to see him come forward now, and of course he's also playing a role in Winston Churchill that is, being a World War II film, it already has a distinct advantage because we've seen the Academy loves World War II stuff.
And it requires prosthetics.
Yep, it requires prosthetics, which especially like the kind that it takes to play Winston Churchill, which is like a big roll of like flesh under your chin, which can inhibit your ability to perform. And Oldman has also picked up all of the precursor awards, so he's got those indicators on his side as well.
Yeah, I completely agree with you here. I think this is a much easier category than Best Actress. The one dark horse I would say is Timothée Chalamet. I thought he was brilliant in Call Me By Your Name. Daniel Day-Lewis was good as well, but I don't think this is his strongest performance in his career. So, I mean, if Timothée Chalamet is a close second, then I think Gary Oldman really hands down wins this award.
Yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see Timothée Chalamet pick something up in the future, but for him to be the youngest ever nominee in the category, I still feel that the Academy as a whole still skews older generally, and they're less likely to give it to a kid on his first appearance. So then into the supporting category, then I feel like these are also I'm as confident with the supporting categories as I am with Gary Oldman for Best Actor, and that would be Sam Rockwell and Allison Janney.
I have the exact same picks. 3 Billboards, in my opinion, as I've said before, I think is my pick for Best Film of the Year, and Sam Rockwell is critical to that movie. The only person that I think could challenge him, and I think he's a bit of a long shot anyway, is Willem Dafoe.
Oh, yeah, for the Florida Project.
Exactly. But Willem Dafoe's role in the Florida Project is not as prominent as Sam Rockwell's. I think Dafoe he played it brilliantly. I just don't think the role was meaty enough for him to win. And with Best Supporting Actress, it's between Laurie Metcalf and Allison Janney. Some people think Leslie Manville would win.
Yes.
But I was a little surprised that she got the nomination over Vicky Krieps or Cripes.
Yeah, I don't know.
Vicky Krieps in Phantom Thread. I was a little surprised by that. I think Allison Janney just had a more powerful presence in that film. She was hilarious in a dark and sort of kind of murdery kind of way.
Yeah.
I think Laurie Metcalf's performance was more nuanced, but again, Allison Janney, I think she's the one that's been picking up all the awards beforehand, right? So she must have the inside track.
Yeah, I think she has the backing of the acting block of the Academy on her side. Even though, I mean, if Laurie Metcalf did win, I feel like it would still be very deserved. I mean, thinking back to Lady Bird now, one of the strongest moments in the entire movie has to be when she drops off Lady Bird at the airport, and then the camera is on Laurie Metcalf driving the car away from the departures area of the airport, and she has to go sort of like Timothée Chalamet in that final shot from Call Me By Your Name. Laurie Metcalf in that shot in Lady Bird has to go through this amazing range of emotions in the course of this one sustained shot. And it really spoke to her craft, and I don't know. I would be equally happy to see Janney or Metcalf pick it up for that.
Now for the following categories, these tend to be more subjective. I do think that in each of these, there's also like 2 or 3 front runners, but I do like making these picks because without these categories, the film wouldn't be what it is.
Actually, can we add in a few before we get in? Because I saw your list, and there was a few that we should add in that may need to come a little bit higher, namely foreign language film, animated feature, and documentary.
Okay, let's start with it. Best animated feature.
Because this is easy. It's going to be Coco.
It is. Having not seen all of them, I know it's going to be Coco.
There's a few dark horses in the sense of like there's a couple of smaller films that may sneak up and steal it, but I feel like Coco's got the whole industry behind it.
Yeah, no one does animated films like Pixar. They have this layer of maturity and plot to them that a lot of other ones don't have. So I anytime Pixar is in this category, I usually think they are the front runner to win.
Yeah, unless they've got like a crazy sequel or something that they're putting out in that particular year.
Right.
Okay, yeah, then for foreign language film, I haven't seen any of these nominees yet, which is almost always the case when the nominees come out, but I do try to see...
Which is why I can't pick.
Yeah, but I do try to see at least 1 or 2 of them before the Oscars are finally announced. But this year, I think it's going to be The Square by Ruben Östlund. His film Force Majeure, which I really, really liked, was actually cut out of the finalists from 2014, I believe it was. And this year, the film The Square that he put out picked up the Palme d'Or at Cannes, so that's a pretty strong indicator that it will go the final distance and grab Best Foreign Language Film. And then for documentary, the film Icarus seems to be the front runner right now. Again, not one that I've gotten a chance to see yet, but it is kind of cool to keep track of this one because sometimes you get some very interesting narratives that come out just about the people who actually pick up this award and the kind of stuff that they uncover in a future project.
How close is Last Man in Aleppo?
How close is Last Man in Aleppo to
to winning, to Icarus?
I don't know, because Icarus seems to be, you know how every year in the documentary category there's one that that people who follow documentaries, there's always one that people say, oh yeah, that's the one. In years previous, like a great example was the Amy Winehouse documentary Amy. That was a clear head and shoulders front runner from the moment the nominations dropped, and there have been other examples in years past. This year's a little bit more murky because I feel like Icarus doesn't have the same kind of market impact that a movie like Amy did.
Yeah.
And there's also a Steve James documentary in this year, and he's a bit of a star in the documentary world.
Yeah, Hoop Dreams is amazing. I just mentioned Aleppo because it won the top prize at Sundance.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so I haven't seen any of these, full disclosure, but it's a very interesting category to me anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so let's jump back into the more technical categories that you listed.
So right off the top is Best Original Score. This was a really tough category. The only one I ruled out right away was The Last Jedi because Star Wars, the music's great, but I mean, it's the same old theme for most of the time.
Well, that's not entirely true. I mean, Williams has he's tossed in a few new themes here and there, but I still agree with you in the sense that he holds the record for most Oscar nominations by a living person at 51 nominations. So I don't feel like,
which is nuts.
Yeah, I don't feel like the Academy is straining or really down on itself for not giving him love in the past. So
So for this category, I concentrated more on which score made a bigger impact on the film or the biggest impact on the film, and to me that's Dunkirk.
Okay.
I think the score with the clock and the rhythm really helped build the tension in the film. I think it's quite original. I think it's quite different from what we've had in the past. So I think that's why Dunkirk stands out for me.
Okay. Well, for my part, I'm going to go with Alexander Desplat for Shape of Water.
That was my second pick.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
My reasoning here is twofold. I mean, I think that original score this year may end up following a bit of a wave for The Shape of Water just generally in terms of the number of technical awards it picks up.
Sure.
And the fact that I was thinking back to the scores that really stuck with me months after having seen the film. And the one that Desplat did for Shape of Water still kind of rattling around in my brain somewhere. It had that kind of old movie feel, the kind of romance and the fairy tale. You know, it brought out a lot of the genre influences in a way that I really liked. And I feel like if The Shape of Water has racked up the number of nominations it has, it might mean that this is one of the ones that it will pick up and add to its tally.
Yeah. I'm kind of with you there as my second pick. The thing with The Shape of Water is that I would not be surprised if it picked up the most nominations, but the wins are kind of sprinkled throughout the top 3 or 4 films.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's that type of year. It's that tight.
It may only get 4 or 5 when everything is all said and done, but for my money, I think original score is going to go that way.
Best film editing?
Best film editing, it's got to be Dunkirk, I think.
I agree. Without that editing, that story doesn't make any sense.
Yes, and it takes a lot of technical skill to attempt something. You know, you could argue that it's a little bit experimental in its structure.
Yes.
And
yes, I agree. And they pulled it off.
Yeah, and to pull it off. I mean, I think lesser editors may struggle with assembling something like that and keep the audience interested and even be able to hook in people who don't really recognize that it's the editing that's keeping them grounded.
Yeah.
Because not everyone has the ability to really objectively look at editing when they're seeing it for the first time. And the fact that and for anybody who's listening who's not quite sure what we're talking about, the key with Dunkirk is that the time scales are really out of whack in the first half an hour to 45 minutes of the movie, and you're almost not sure exactly what's going on until there's a critical scene that and a piece of dialogue that helps pull the curtain back a little bit. And then from that point on, you're just kind of sitting back and you're like, oh, wow, I can't believe that we've sort of been watching 3 perspectives on the movie this whole time.
Yeah, and they come together so nicely and so seamlessly, and that's all editing. That's all editing.
And it also, well, and if all of that wasn't enough of a convincing argument for why Dunkirk is going to pick up this award, it also was able to grab the Guild Award as well, the Eddie Award. So
oh, okay, I didn't know that.
It's always tricky to figure out when the Guild Awards are happening, and like, because it's not like the news headlines are going to say like, oh, the editors of Hollywood gave out their awards at a splashy gala the other night. To kind of track down who actually got nominated and who won takes a little bit of work.
Next category, best sound editing. This was a tough one, but I want to hear your thoughts first.
I mean, I have to say that sound editing and sound mixing are those kind of that twin category that you have to be a pretty big movie buff to A, know the difference between them, and B, care who wins the awards. But
I like these 2 categories though. I really do.
Oh yeah, no, I'm just saying that for the folks watching at home, I think like the vast majority of people are going to the bathroom when the sound awards are being announced, or they're sitting there being like, oh, come on, get to the good stuff.
Yeah. I think though, like, we should talk about the difference between editing and mixing.
Well, yeah, because mixing usually refers to finding the right balance and volume levels for the different effects and the music, and it's amazing how say bringing up the volume of a gunshot or bringing down the volume of the music at a particular point can really change the way you respond to a scene. But that's very different from editing too, because editing often pulls in more of a recording aspect,
yes,
and a creation of new sounds based on different sounds. So like one of the best examples is how Ben Burt, working on the original Star Wars, combined sound effects of walruses and bears and camels to create Chewbacca's voice.
Yeah. So the way I think about it is that sound mixing is more about layers of sound. So in any scene, there's layers of different sounds, and what you hear versus what you see on the screen has to sort of connect.
Yeah.
With editing though, it's more about how closely the sound matches what's happening on the screen. So it's less concerned about the layers, but it's more concerned, I think, about timing and more about what you should hear, whether it cuts to image or not, basically.
Yeah, and that's a pretty good distinction, actually. Another way to think about it is in terms of like the new Star Wars film. Like it was most likely a sound editing decision to strip the audio out of that blockbuster scene where Admiral Hondo crashes her cruiser into the Star Destroyer, and they strip away all of the sound in that moment, and it has a much bigger impact on you because of the way they decided to cut out the sound in that particular point.
Yeah.
It also confused some superfans and caused some really irritating disclaimers being posted on AMC theaters, but that's a different story.
I did not hear about this story.
Yeah, it was some AMC venues down in the States were getting too many complaints from fanboys who didn't understand that was a creative decision at that particular point, and that
oh my God,
they were demanding.
Come on, people.
Yeah, they were demanding their money back from AMC, saying like, oh well, I just the projection or the screening didn't work. It was a shoddy thing, and just because people were kind of got a little bit too caught up in their fandom, maybe.
Yeah, but anyway, best sound editing. Who'd you pick?
I think it's going to be Dunkirk for both of these. I feel like...
Oh, okay. Which again speaks to Dunkirk's like expertise in technical categories, but as a film as a whole, it kind of falls short. I agree with you on best sound mixing. I have Dunkirk winning, except for best sound editing, and I'm kind of surprised you didn't pick this, but I have Baby Driver.
Yeah, I mean, at first when I was going through the nominees, I feel like I liked Baby Driver a lot more for editing in all 3 categories, like film, sound, and sound mixing.
I didn't like the editing in Baby Driver, actually. The film editing, I should say.
Yeah, but I think a lot of my like enjoyment of the editing in the various disciplines in Baby Driver was due to my fandom about Edgar Wright movies in general. So I sort of took a step back for that, and I'm like, is Baby Driver the kind of movie that would be rewarded at the Oscars? And I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's a little bit too mainstream or a little bit too too much of a summer movie to kind of get to that level.
Maybe. The one thing I should say about both categories is that I had Blade Runner in second place for both of them. I think Blade Runner is fantastic technically as well. The thing with Baby Driver that kind of stood out to me was how the music was cut to the action on the screen, or vice versa. And I think it stood out for that reason, because without that quality of sound editing, I don't think that film really works. The thing with sound mixing is that this tends to be a category where war films win, because there's so many layers of sound that they have to cut through. And I think even though there's very little dialogue, the action on the screen, the hum of the engines, and the score really all worked really well, and it really helped build the tension throughout the entire film because it doesn't really let up.
No, and there are moments like when the waves are crashing up on the bulkhead where all of the troops are massed waiting for the ship to pick them up. I mean, in those moments, there is no dialogue. There's nothing to really, and there's very little plot actually too. So there's little to distract you from the mixing and the editing on display there. So it's an example. It's probably a rather rare example when you think about it, of a movie that depends so heavily on the sound in so many of its scenes.
Another favorite category of mine is Best Production Design. So this is kind of the award that goes to the best film that creates a certain atmosphere or a certain environment. And to me, even though I think it's pretty close, it goes to Blade Runner for me.
Oh, really? Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you in the sense that I feel like it's not deserved, because it totally is. But I feel like the Best Picture candidacy of The Shape of Water puts it over the top in production design for me. I feel like it's
Shape of Water is my second choice. Yeah.
it's kind of like a TikTok sort of decision where, because 2049 has so much, like the production design is so well incorporated with the cinematography and the sound and everything. It's just this assault of the senses in a good way.
What kind of tipped the scales for Blade Runner for me is that The Shape of Water is a bit of a period film. So there's a lot of things that I think they can take from real life. Whereas for Blade Runner, even though they really tried to match the look of the first film, I really think they really came up with some really neat and special looks and ideas. There's this like real industrial feel to it. And everything just feels uniform and everything makes sense. And I think the house that Jared Leto lives in, Neander Wallace, the water, the blackness of it, combined with the wood and then like the technology behind the entire universe, I thought it was top notch.
Oh, yeah. For The Shape of Water, too, I think one thing that Del Toro has going for him is that he's been very forthcoming with his thought process on how he approached the production design, specifically the color coding that he dreamt up. He's gone on the record in a number of interviews and at festivals talking about the significance of the color red, where it's used in particular points in the film, or why certain characters' living spaces are coded green or orange, and he approached it. He approached the production design in an almost academic way from the beginning, saying like none of it was an accident. And I feel like that's the kind of thing that might carry it through to winning, because people will say, "Oh, well, I heard him talk about it. I mean, that totally makes sense. That's half the reason I like that shot." So
that to me almost speaks more to best cinematography. But I have Roger Deakins winning that one.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like the two categories do move hand in hand in many cases, but cinematography too is got so much to do with the lighting and the lensing and the framing.
Yeah.
In addition to the props in the scenes and the sets and everything that's actually seen within the cinematographer's gaze, essentially.
Yeah. Next up is best costume design. This is another category I really like too, because if the characters don't look the part, then the whole film doesn't work. This was a really hard category though. So between my top three would be Phantom Thread, Shape of Water, and Darkest Hour. And in the end, I gave it to Phantom Thread because not only is the movie about dresses, I really think it captured the look and feel of that particular story. I think colors of the dresses really pop, where everything else is some sort of shade of gray. And I think that Paul Thomas Anderson has a way of really making you feel like you're in that era. Kind of like The Master.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
The Shape of Water I really liked, but I also feel like it very much looked like any other Cold War movie. So that's why I kind of tilted towards Phantom Thread. What do you think?
I'm totally on board with that. I mean, for all the reasons you just laid out, but also because there's literally a scene in Phantom Thread where the two main characters, a heist is a bit of a strong word, but they essentially, they both become frustrated with how a secondary character is behaving while dressed in one of the
Yes.
dresses that the main character, Reynolds Woodcock, designed. And then they literally go, after the event where they've seen her misbehaving, they go up to her hotel room and basically yank the thing right off of her and confiscate it and say to themselves, we have to do this, even though we ostensibly occupy like a position in polite London society, we're still going to do this because we feel so strongly about the dress being respected.
Yeah, the dresses look fantastic. They all look fantastic.
So for that reason, I feel like the award has to go to a movie that literally depicts how passionate people can get about this very thing that the award is about.
Final category, Best Visual Effects. This was another tough category, but because Dawn of the Planet of the Apes lost last time it was nominated, my vote goes for War for the Planet of the Apes because it totally deserves it. I don't think without that visual effects, I don't think Andy Serkis's performance comes to life, and I don't think the movie works if the effects don't come to life either.
Yeah. I'm in total agreement here. Like, as much as I love Blade Runner 2049's visual effects and how that kind of seamless integration between digital and practical, how Dave Bautista was basically allowed to keep his role as Sapper Morton through the use of visual effects because he was essentially deemed he was too young for that role. They were able to kind of make him up and use visual effects to sell you on him playing the character. And of course, just like all those beautiful like tableau scenes of like droning kind of shots through these almost post-apocalyptic but hyper-futuristic cities. And
I almost feel like Blade Runner should win based on joy. Purely based on joy. I thought Kong Skull Island had some really cool effects, but kind of like The Last Jedi and Guardians of the Galaxy, I don't think the visual effects really made performances any better. And I do feel like visual effects like those where everything is computer drawn tends to have less weight with me because I think everyone's really good. I think in this category to stand out, you need to be doing something very different. So for War of the Planet of Apes, it'd be the motion capture technology that they've improved on.
Yeah.
And Blade Runner, just in terms of like the holographic images they have, the amount of light that shines through joy. I wouldn't be surprised if Blade Runner won, but I think War for the Planet of the Apes was due because Dawn didn't win.
Yeah, and did the same team who's worked on the Apes films, were they nominated or did they even win for Rise of the Planet of the Apes back in 2011?
That I don't know, actually.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know whether they were in contention at all that year. But yeah, if it is true that the Apes films have never won in this category before, yeah, it totally makes sense. It's almost like a winning now would be sort of also a retroactive award for the work that was done previously. Because, I mean, I think about the war scene in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes in 2014 and that shot where the camera is essentially mounted on the turret of a tank that's rolling out of control down a street in San Francisco. And as the camera pans around, you see all of this chaos and stuff happening. And it apparently took like months and months to nail this shot and like just a ridiculous amount of computer power and people. And I feel like if War wins, it'll be a bit of a consolation for all the folks who worked on Dawn as well.
Yeah, Rise didn't win. It got nominated but didn't win. Same with Dawn.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. So that backs up the case then.
Yeah, this is kind of like Lord of the Rings, the Return of the King. How I think the first two films were superior, but the last film got all the awards because it was kind of like a makeup call.
Yeah.
So I feel like War for the Planet of the Apes is due. And granted, they did a fantastic job.
Yeah, but that about does it for all of like the major categories, the ones that people spend the most time talking about. Obviously, there are others as well. There's like makeup and hairstyling, and then there's the short categories. But I think we've kind of covered off a lot all the stuff. Any like last thoughts about the race as it stands? I mean, I still feel that I may file like an updated post on the site to once
You're not allowed.
when the Guild Awards finally start getting announced, I'll be like, no, take back. I'm gonna forget about the podcast.
I'm gonna stick to my guns. The only one I'm really not sure about is The Shape of Water. Before I saw Three Billboards, I thought The Shape of Water would win Best Picture, but now that I've seen Three Billboards, I'm less sure. It wouldn't surprise me if The Shape of Water won because it's way more Academy bait than Three Billboards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I think Three Billboards was very dramatic. It made me, certainly at times, made me feel uncomfortable, but almost in a good way. And I honestly think that it is the most unique of the films that have been nominated for Best Picture, other than Get Out, but I just don't think Get Out has what it takes to win Best Picture.
No, I mean, I feel like Get Out will certainly not be forgotten, and it's great to see that it got nominated in the screenplay and the directing and the Best Picture categories. It wasn't snubbed, to use the often overused term.
The one issue I kind of wanted to get your opinion on was, I think it was fair that The Disaster Artist only got nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts about it potentially getting quote-unquote snubbed for Best Actor and Best Picture?
I mean,
I don't think it was a particularly strong film, to be honest.
No, I mean, I like, setting aside the fact that I legitimately enjoyed watching it, and I also watched it at its first like full public screening, and like Tommy Wiseau was there and the whole cast was there. So I think my initial reaction to it was a little bit buoyed up by the just the experience of the screening I went to. But yeah, when you kind of put it on an even playing field with all of the other films that it could be nominated against, it's more of, and I think we talked about this back like when TIFF was happening too. For me, it's more of like an 80% on the Rotten Tomatoes, or like a 4 stars out of 5 kind of film. So it's not, it's really, it's close to that kind of excellent film crop of the year, but it can't quite get there. It's still a little bit derivative in places. It still feels like a little bit of just kind of a bunch of comedy actors having a fun time, parodying something that they all kind of loved back when it came out originally. And it feels more like a bunch of people having fun doing something than a kind of achievement. I am a little disappointed that the Florida Project didn't get as many nominations as I thought it should. Oh, yeah. And I'm also disappointed that Meryl Streep was nominated for Best Actress, because I think she stole a spot, even though I haven't seen the post. I just saw the post this afternoon, in fact. And I feel like, I mean, she's really good in it, and yeah, of course, she's good all the time. But that's the thing, she's good all the time, and I feel like she might have like poached a spot from, say, Vicky Krieps for. I'm surprised she didn't get the nod against Leslie Manville. I didn't think Leslie Manville's role was meaty enough to be Best Supporting Actress. She did a good job, but I mean, I don't know if I agree with that choice. Phantom Thread is difficult in that regard too, because do you say that Vicky Krieps is supporting actress level, or is she Best Actress level? Well, either category, I think she should have been nominated. But then again, Leslie Manville is also, for my money, she's also a good pick in the sense that her character is so integral to Reynolds Woodcock's strange personality and eccentricities, and without having Leslie Manville's character a presence in that film or in that character's life, the weirdness of Daniel Day-Lewis's performance may not have been able to be fully explained or make enough sense. Yeah, I think Leslie Manville pulls that movie together, at least for the two leads. And I'm trying to think of, the other kind of weird thing from the race this year was, of course, Denzel Washington for Roman J. Israel Esquire. Yeah, I didn't see that. Did you? No, it came to TIFF super last minute. It sort of occupied the spot that had been vacated by The Catcher Was a Spy, the Paul Rudd period film. Right. And it sort of jumped in, and like nobody had even really had it on their radars at all. And then it was met with some really bad reviews. A lot of people saying that not only was the film itself bad, but that it actually looked like Denzel Washington himself was bad in it, which is rare because normally he's like, even in bad films, he sort of elevates the material.
Yep.
So yeah, there's a lot of people saying that like they just couldn't watch it. It just felt like a total half-baked effort from everyone involved.
Any other last thoughts?
No, I think that about does it. We kept things pretty short and trim here for this special episode.
Yeah, that's good. That's what we're aiming for.
It'll save my butt in the editing too, because the last episode was like 90 minutes and it was just a marathon to edit.
Yeah, I figured it would be nice if I kind of set out like a schedule or like
a framework
from which we should go by so we don't get carried away by our tangents.
Yeah. But for upcoming episodes, we'll definitely be diving back into a little bit more breaking news in the movie and TV industry, talking about stuff that have caught our eye in the past couple of weeks, because as we move out of January, you know, we start seeing Marvel films come back into the schedule, and stuff like Alex Garland's Annihilation, or the new film from Jason Reitman, Tully, which is on its way in the next couple of months. So obviously there's going to be a lot to talk about over the next couple of weeks. But yeah, head on over to kinetoscope.ca. We've got a posted in recent days. We've had a new entry in my Netflix Canada recommendations column, True North Streaming, and I'll probably be posting my official Oscar predictions as well. And for those folks who missed the discussion here on the podcast. But until the next episode, my name is Robert Snow in Toronto.
And my name is Jason Chen in Vancouver. Be sure to check out the website, kinetoscope.ca, and we'll talk to you next time.